Hello, everyone. Welcome to a British Audiophile. I'm delighted to welcome Ian White from Ecoustics, Editor-in-Chief. Hi, Ian.
Hey, Taryn, how are you? How you feeling?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I've finally started to shake off that cough from the dreaded lurgy that I got a month ago. And
We're like the COVID patrol.
you had it as well. Yes, I know.
Twice.
Oh dear. Oh
Yeah.
dear.
No
How
smell or taste. Ugh.
Still hasn't come back.
3 months. 3 months.
I got the Omicron, so that I think I got away with not having those symptoms. But
yeah, but you also got Boris Johnson. So you got Omicron and you got Boris Johnson. But
yes.
yeah, no, but I had, well, actually, I guess I had the original strain of COVID, and then I got vaccinated, and then I got vaccinated again, and then I got Delta, and Delta was worse post-vaccination. So I don't know. I think all of us at this point are just kind of throwing our hands up in the air, and when we're kind of looking sideways at people from all the various health organizations in our respective countries.
Yeah, you're in the US, not in Canada, though, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, trust me. If I was in Canada, I probably wouldn't be on the air with you right now. I'd be listening to honking outside my window if I lived in Ottawa, or if we were in Montreal, I'd be under curfew.
Oh,
so
dear.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, onwards and upwards. Anyway, we thought we'd do this for a while. Just sit down and pick out some of our favorite amplifiers from the current crop that are out there.
Yeah, this is a show that we were going to do actually before Christmas and the Hanukkah holidays, and everyone got sick, and we were like, no. It became no.
Better late than never.
Yes, definitely. And you know what? And all the things we're going to talk about today are actually products that are not only available, they're actually unfortunately more expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's one thing that I know that British consumers and U.S. and Canadian consumers are dealing with right now. Prices in the last 6 weeks on almost all of these products, with very few exceptions, have actually gone up.
Yeah.
And and British products in particular have become much more expensive in the United States. And I have I would say a majority of my picks are even British products.
Well, we try to get organized, and actually, for the sake of the viewers, we try to say, actually, let's email each other a list of stuff that we've got, but we kept changing it. So I have absolutely no idea what's on your list now, and you probably similarly. So
well, actually, the only reason why it changed is that I've had a chance since we made the original list to listen to more gear.
Right.
And also in certain products, I don't think I removed anything from our original list, but I've had a chance to listen to more things. And when I was sick, I had like 3 or 4 new integrateds coming at the same time.
Oh, well. Yeah.
So I've had a chance to kind of, sort of, I guess, spread the wealth around, share the wealth. But so actually, do you want to start with our picks on the budget side? Because I think for a lot of people, that's in many ways the most important category, because budget gear has become so much better. I think that's one of the biggest things that I will say after 23 years. What you can get in 2022 for under, let's say, £500-600, or $550 to $650 US, has changed dramatically. The quality has changed. So I'll actually let you go first, because I'm curious to know what your budget picks are.
So I had 2 picks, which I haven't changed. So the first one would be the Iota VX SA3.
Okay.
Still remarkably, because I actually went today and checked all the prices of all of these, because like you say, they are changing. And the Iota VX is still at £399 on their website. I mean, it says reduced from £449 to £399, but that's one of those permanent sales. There's a company called DFS here that sells sofas that constantly has a sale. So it's that. So it's like that. It's always £399. It hasn't changed. But that's my first pick. That's just a really nice all-round amplifier at the price, dynamic, got good clarity, got a built-in DAC. The DAC's okay. It's a Wolfson DAC chip, which is okay. You can do a little bit better if you get an external DAC chip, but nothing to complain about at the price. And I think it's just a rock-solid offering around that price. So that was my first one. What was yours?
Okay. So my first one actually is, I guess my first one is still the NAD C316B V2. It's an integrated amplifier that has been around for a while. So it's not necessarily a 2021 product. It's actually been around, I think, even longer. But it's a product that actually has been consistently good for the entire life cycle of the product. You know, NAD has always done a great job with budget equipment, but this particular integrated amplifier has gone up a little bit. I think from when I reviewed it at the beginning of last year, it was slightly under 500, I want to say, and it's definitely gone up. I haven't checked the most recent price, but I know it's at least $50 more, I think.
Yeah.
And it's one of these amplifiers. It's just like all NAD gear. It sounds much more powerful than the actual specs. It's built well. The moving magnet phono stage is a massive overachiever. That's one of the things, having run 5 or 6 turntables through it, it overachieves in a big way on the phono stage side. And it's just a quiet, like typical NAD amplifier that does like nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And it works with a lot of products. It's actually, I've tried it now with probably 20 speakers.
Yeah.
And it's
quite a mature sounding amplifier as well, isn't it? It hasn't got that typical kind of boosted bass, boosted top end.
I mean, it's a little warm in the mid range, which surprised me a little bit. But because at the same time that actually I got it, I was also reviewing the Cambridge Audio AXA35, which is another really good budget integrated amplifier that is definitely warmer sounding than the NAD. But I think they're very comparable. I mean, they both have decent phono stages. They both have internal headphone amplifiers. I think they might even have the same number of inputs. So, I mean, they're very comparable. And the Cambridge actually sort of fits into, I mean, Cambridge Audio has done a really good job the last couple of years.
Right.
And it's not sort of like a fluke that if you look at any hi-fi magazines, sort of, you know, best amplifiers of 2020, 2021, there's at least 2 or 3 Cambridge pieces on everyone's list.
Right.
You know, so I would say the NAD, the Cambridge, and then I'll let you tell me your second and third. But my third quickly is the Rega IO. The Rega IO is almost $700 US. I'm not quite sure what the price is in pounds, but I think it's a better deal in the UK than it is buying it in the US or Canada. But it's a very competent, quiet, typical Rega product that has a really decent phono stage, not a lot of power. So it really doesn't sound as powerful as the Cambridge or the NAD, but with the right pair of speakers, it's a really nice little amplifier.
Yeah, they're really good choices, I think. The NAD I'm very familiar with. I've heard the older Cambridge Audio stuff, but not the current crop. I'm hoping that I can get some of those in for review at some point. Rega are a little bit reluctant to engage in YouTube here in the UK, so I don't think I'll be reviewing the Rega anytime soon. But I've heard loads of Rega. I haven't heard the IO. I've heard the Brio and all the others pretty much in the range over the years.
Okay,
so,
it's sort of like a Brio. It's like a Brio Light.
Yeah. No, so my other 2 choices it's probably getting up there in. I like the word accessible. So in terms of accessible amplifiers, is the Audiolab 6000A, which basically takes what the Iota is, adds a much better quality DAC. So if you want an built-in DAC, the DAC's phenomenal inside, where it's just about fit for purpose inside the Iota, and it just has a little bit more refinement. So a similar amount of power. I think they're both around the 50 watts per channel mark, but the Audiolab justifies that extra couple of £100. Actually, it's crept up to 649, I think, when I looked at it today.
That would make sense because it's already over $800 here.
Right. Yeah.
And
so
it's a really good amp.
It is. Yeah.
You know,
and the alternative would have been the Rega Brio, which I think is a more organic, not quite as detailed, more organic sounding amplifier, but just has a very nice, if you're kind of interested in tonality and a more natural tonality, I think the Rega Brio would be my pick around that price. Reminds me of the NAD 316 BE in some ways, just a bit better sound quality, I think.
My only issues with the Audiolab, it's actually an amplifier that I own. So it's not even like a review. I've owned it for, I think, almost 2.5 years. My only issues with the Audiolab, I find the tonal balance a little lean.
Right.
You really
Yes.
need to use warmer sounding speakers with it, darker sounding speakers.
Mm.
I don't like the fact that on the digital input side there is no USB input, so it's either coax or Toslink.
Yeah.
And I find that, so I also own a CDT, a 6000 CDT. So
Right.
if you're interested in a system that has a CD player, Audiolab CD player is the ideal match for it, both sonically, visually, the way that essentially, I mean, they're the same size products.
Yeah.
But I really wish that Audiolab had put a USB input on the back, because a lot of the streamers that I tend to use have USB, and I guess it would be more convenient. I know that they can't do everything.
Yeah, you find a lot of them at that price don't, because of the asynchronous connection, and it's a different type of interface, isn't it? So it just adds cost. So even at £1,000, I'm finding a lot of these with built-in DACs, the Atolls, etc., don't have a USB connection, and it's something that I look for, because if you're using a streamer and you're plugging it into the Audiolab, the likelihood is that the clocking mechanism inside the Audiolab and its internal DAC is better than the one in your streamer. So,
yeah, most likely.
yeah.
Actually, the other thing that's good about the Audiolab, and I think for people who are sort of concerned about long-term upgradability, so the Audiolab on its front panel, when you depress one of the buttons, the Audiolab can serve three functions. It can be an integrated amplifier, it can be a preamplifier, or it can actually just serve as a power amplifier.
Yeah, it's very clever.
Yeah, so I actually think that's rare. I mean, because you certainly can't do that with the NAD. You can definitely not do that with the Cambridge. And, so you're right. In many ways, that extra bit of versatility for a lot of people is like, you know what, this is a piece I can build a system around.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember when I had the Acoustic Energy AE1s and two speakers that you and I are in, very much in agreement about. I mean, aside from the fact that I don't think the tonal balance between the two of them was, I guess, to my liking, but the fact that I could essentially use the Audiolab as a preamplifier and go directly into the Acoustic Energy active speakers was a really, really nice feature that you don't see on too many integrateds like that.
Yeah.
So
it makes a lot of sense if you're trying to integrate into a home theater system. If you later on want to upgrade and get bigger power amps that Audiolab do, it makes a lot of sense. But I think you're right about the tonality. It has that analytical, slightly cool, lean tonality that a lot. The Iota VX has that, and I think the Rega and the NAD are kind of the opposite
warmer.
of that. Much warmer sounding amplifiers. Yeah.
Before we get into our network streaming picks, because I know for a lot of people that's a big category.
Yeah.
Another really interesting integrated amplifier, I guess, I'm not sure if I would say it's budget, because I guess would $795 be perceived as budget? I mean, the UK, that's probably what, £500 to £600? Probably not.
Well, it's all relative, isn't it? Depending on who you ask, but it's still, I think, still in those realms. I think anything sub £1,000 is still probably. I mean, I think when we were categorizing it, that's what we chose. I'm not saying that that's what's affordable to everybody, because who might say? But I'm saying that I think our mid-tier ones that we'll talk about later are kind of around the 2K part.
Yeah.
And we were trying to keep it to around £500-600, weren't we? But if it's going a little bit higher, I think there's no harm in that. You can include that in.
So I really like the Rotel A11 Tribute.
Okay.
I mean, I've actually reviewed the new A14 Mark II and the A12 Mark II, which is an even newer integrated amplifier. But there's something about the Tribute integrated amplifier. I mean, it's stripped down in comparison to the other two amplifiers. It's a pure integrated amplifier. It was one of the last products designed by the late Ken Ishiwata, who a lot of people know from his work for Marantz. And that is a really lovely sounding amplifier. It's one of those amplifiers you kind of look at it and you realize it doesn't have a lot of features, but then you run a decent turntable and a streamer through it, and you're kind of like, wow, like this is actually better than a lot of things in the category. So I'm really big on that Rotel integrated. I think it's like it's had a fair number of reviews, but I think people look at the more expensive A12 and A14 because of the fact that both of them also have a DAC inside.
Right.
So it's a more sophisticated product, and it's designed more for people, who want to essentially connect like a streamer directly, into the digital section of the preamp. And but the Rotel Tribute integrated, actually, I think, is a really nice piece.
Yeah, I'd like to listen to that. I haven't heard that yet. You have the you have all the acoustics resources at your hand, so you can get hold of
It's
whatever you want. You see,
it's weird what's kind of gone on, because Rega actually has been very backed up here in North America. I know at one point when I reached out to Rega's distributor, the sound organization, who handle pretty much all of, they handle Canada and the US. I'm not sure if they handle Mexico, but they were sort of like, we have no product that we can possibly send to you right now because we're 6 months behind on some products for deliveries. So obviously, as a magazine, you are not going to get preference when they can't even deliver a product to customers who are waiting. I know at one point they had a 6 or 7 month backup on Rega planar 3s. They had that many orders that had to be fulfilled, and I really wasn't going to turn to them and say, well, no, I want one for review. No, paying customers have to always come first. But I don't know. A lot of the companies have been very, very willing to ship out integrated amplifiers and network amplifiers. That hasn't been the case with separates. And I've noticed that brands that I ask for products, they're like, "Do you want the integrated amplifier?" Hint, hint. Wink, wink. So I mean, over the last 12 months, I've had a chance to listen to probably 16 or 17 integrated amplifiers, and and it's just, I mean, obviously we'll get into sort of the streaming thing now, but the network streaming amplifier category has become huge during the pandemic. And I'll let you sort of go first in terms of what your picks would be in that category.
Well, I had one pick because I knew what your pick was, and so I'll let you. Well, I won't spill the beans just yet. I'll let you reveal that.
Okay.
So I had one pick, and then I went to check what the price was today, and I found out it's discontinued.
Oh, no way.
And it's not available anymore. So on their website. So that was the Yamaha WXA50, which I thought was just cracking value for money. And it did have a USB. It had a USB connection as well, which is something that I would look for the reasons that you said.
When did they kill this amplifier?
I don't know. I didn't know. I spoke to, when I was talking to the Yamaha rep a couple of months ago, it was still an active product, so it must have just been recently. But I went onto the website and it's discontinued. But that was £450. It was, I think, Class
good
D,
price.
Compact little thing, multi-room system, multi-room functionality with their, what's it called, music cast is there.
Right.
And I've heard it I haven't auditioned it at home, but I've heard it a good few times, and it's always sounded really, really good. And I thought that's an awful lot of product for £450.
Yeah.
But the pickings are thin with relatively accessible streaming amplifiers. There aren't a huge amount of them out there.
So for me, on the affordability side, the obvious choice for me is the Bluesound Powernode. I just don't understand why anyone wouldn't look at that product and consider it rather seriously. It's just, I mean, if you're familiar with the Bluesound Node network player, it's just a powered version of the Node. And what makes it sort of really great, though, is that it does have an analog input. So you can run a phono stage, an external phono stage into the back. And the real kicker, really, what I think really gives all the Bluesound products the value is the fact that BlueOS has become such a mature streaming sort of app and platform. I know from my conversations with Lenbrook that they've really put a lot of R&D time and money into developing BlueOS. And it does get upgraded a couple of times a year with firmware updates. And it's just such an easy product to use. I mean, if you're getting into audio for the first time and streaming is your primary form of listening, it's effectively, I connect everything via Ethernet. Even though they're wireless streaming products, I connect everything in my home with a hardwire connection. It's a tiny little box. I mean, it's barely the size of like a toaster.
Shoecase, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
And shoebox size.
Shoebox.
Yeah.
And it's got a really great sort of touch sensitive top panel. and it works all the time. I've never had an issue with any Bluesound product in all the years the company has been around. And the app works really well on both your computer, but also it works really well on your phone.
Yeah.
And the ability to, let's say, sit like at the kitchen table and open up your notebook and go into the BlueOS web browser sort of version, like the app that's available on the browser, and control it, and also set up a multi-room type of system if you have Bluesound wireless speakers, like they're like the Flex series.
Yep.
It's
and then
so
you've got
yeah.
And then you've got PSB speakers, which obviously they're voiced to sound very,
right. So it's
all
so
those.
easy to set it up. And I think for a lot of people, when they're buying a network amplifier, it's the connectivity and being able to get it set up in only a matter of minutes with their phone is where Bluesound wins people over. And I think where companies make people kind of like pull their hair out is when they connect the network amplifier and they're like, this doesn't work. This app sucks. It doesn't do. Also, the other thing,
Does
BlueOS,
gapless,
yes,
gapless.
gapless playback.
Yeah.
It supports Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect. They're Roon ready devices.
Yeah.
Apple AirPlay 2. So they're very versatile. And even as a reviewer, when a product is that easy to set up, it automatically gets more points. I mean, and consumers, I'm sure. I mean, I remember when I got the Bluesound Node and I took it out of the box and I showed it to my wife and she said, "Oh, what is that?" And I said, "It's like basically like a wireless music player." And I connected it to our system in 5 minutes. And she was like, "How do I use it?" Went on her phone. I downloaded the app. I went on her iMac, showed her how to download the actual, browser control of the app. And we would put in our Tidal accounts and our Qobuz accounts, and she was done.
Yeah.
And that's why people like that type of product.
It's a really good, solid choice. You've got a UCD, Hypex UCD Class D module doing the amplification.
Yeah.
And then you've got, and like you say, the big selling point of that is the Bluesound app, which is head and shoulders above everybody else apart from probably Sonos. Sonos are probably the only people who have as slick an app in the marketplace. And that just, it's my go-to recommendation when people who aren't audiophiles are looking for, they'll come, a couple of friends will come around, they'll have a listen to this system and they'll think, oh wow, that's what's that, and how that sounds great, what can I have in my home? And they don't necessarily want to spend what I've spent,
right?
So but they want something that sounds decent, and they want to access their Spotify playlists and everything else, and they probably want things in different
we're not touching Spotify with a 10-foot pole. We've done 2 podcasts on Spotify this week alone. I'm not going there again.
Right. Okay. But it's my go-to recommendation, and they're never disappointed because it's so easy to use.
Well, also the other thing that happened during the pandemic that I noticed, and I've spoken to custom integrators, because like New Jersey's a big custom integration type of place. People tend to do multi-room and home theater combined in a lot of the homes here. And the BlueOS system is very easy to integrate with other products. And like when I got the Bluesound Node for review, as an example, I already owned a number of Bluesound wireless speakers that we had installed in our kitchen. I had something like in a bedroom, and the ability to use either the Powernode or the Node as a hub and use the app to effectively control different music platforms on different speakers from your phone for that price point is a major selling point for people. Because people want the ability to listen in different rooms, not necessarily what someone else is listening to.
Right.
And in my house, that is definitely the case, because my wife thinks my musical tastes are in my ass, part of my friend. So it's like, so it's sort of like, but for my wife, the ability to have a pair of wireless speakers on her desktop and stream from Tidal off her iMac using the BlueOS app while I'm sitting downstairs listening to maybe like a Qobuz jazz playlist or blues or classical music is like a marriage saver in some ways, because nobody, it's for people it matters, and
it does. It is,
so I A+ to Bluesound for the Powernode.
Right. So that's our picks for accessible. I don't like the word affordable, but accessible
right.
amplifiers and streaming amplifiers. So we'll take a little break here, and then we'll start part 2, which
Okay.
is our mid-tier stuff.
Which only gets slightly more expensive.
Yes.